Hey, this is Chris, the Idaho Painter. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. This is one of many videos out of my new construction course. Everything you need to know about painting a new construction interior. If you want to see that course, it's over and available at paintlifesupply.com. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. We've got a lot more that you can see later on. All right, in this video, we're gonna be talking about spraying doors in new construction. So this is kind of a typical scenario, what it looks like, spraying doors. I'm gonna talk about there's multiple options, how to go about spraying doors in new construction. And a lot of that is just, it depends on, your comfort level spraying doors standing versus spraying doors laying flat. There's a lot of different schools of thought now. One of the beauties about new construction is all the space you do have to be able to do a lot of doors. Now I have a living room right here. This is all the doors from the upstairs. We stood them all up right here. We've already got them, prepped. We got them sanded. We got them sprayed the first coat. Then we sand them again. We sprayed the second coat. They're all completely done now. When they're dry, we begin taking them down. We begin stacking them out in the garage and getting them, out of the way. There's multiple options we'll talk about. The option that I use, that I favor in new construction, is standing them up with a metal door stand right here. Now I've, came up with my own door stands that are solid steel door stands that are extremely sturdy, that I screw up there. There's a lot of different things, guys do. They'll take stir sticks, they'll take pieces of trim. There's a lot of different options, and that's, standing doors up. The Foam Pro ones I did for quite a few years. They're plastic. What you don't want to do is set them outside. Once again, from my personal experience, today's a windy day. We were working on a house. We set them up outside, and they blew over after I sprayed them. Complete disaster. So don't stand doors up outside. You can stand them up in a garage, drop cloths, paper down, to protect things. So I stand them up in kind of like an accordion fashion like this. I like to be able to walk in and out of them, spray. This is very convenient. The house is just PVA primed. I showed some videos of this, on social media recently, and people are saying, oh my gosh, you're getting overspray on the roof, on the ceiling, and it's only PVA primed. It doesn't matter where you get overspray anywhere. You get, doesn't matter getting overspray on the floor, because just like the ceiling, the floor is gonna be covered with tile, LVP or carpet, something is gonna be covering this subfloor. Another thing, somebody had talked about, and commented on is as I'm spraying these doors, they're like, overspray is falling on the other doors. Now, when you're spraying these doors, as fast as I can spray these doors, by the time I do the two at the end and I'm spraying the next two, and if overspray is going up and falling down those doors, they're still sopping wet. And the overspray is not going to do anything. It's not going to make it rough. It's not going to cause an issue. If you sprayed the first two doors down there and you went off and did something else, 30 minutes later you came back, those were dry, and you sprayed the next two doors and you're shooting over the top, yes, now overspray could end up being a problem. One person mentioned, why don't you put cardboard shields and screw cardboard shields to the top? You could do that, but then the paint's gonna bridge from your door to the shield. When you go to pull it off, you're gonna have problems. I've done this method right here for over 25 years, and it absolutely works. Now, this method, standing them up, you'll see down here, I have the doors sitting on stir sticks. So from a learning lesson, if you had them sitting on the floor, paint will get built up over multiple coats, and it's gonna bridge from the door to the floor. And when you go to move the door, it's gonna stick to the floor, and it might pull paint off the door, or it might leave paint, film, kind of like rough and jagged along the bottom that you have to sand off. So I just take break stir sticks. They're free from the paint store. I break them, stack them on the doors, and then we paint it just like that. Now, when you're spraying the doors, they're on a floor, a dirty floor. Before we actually stand up these doors, we shop vac the whole floor really, really good. We shop vac, and I'm pretty particular. I shop vac, the whole room. And then we begin the process of standing up the doors, and we stand them all up. We did the initial prep work, them just leaning up against the wall. So that's the initial sand. So we sand them, we vacuum, dust them with a microfiber cloth, then we begin standing them up. Once we get them all stood up, we go back and vacuum the whole perimeter around the doors, in and out of the doors, because the last thing you want to do is be kicking dust up onto the door and making the bottom of the door rough. So we're very particular about vacuuming and cleaning. I am holding a super stacker, if you've been wondering what's in my hand. You know, some people are uncomfortable spraying up if you don't have the experience because you think you might get runs. One thing, you know, even this is probably the most difficult scenario to spray is a flat door, smooth face door. There's no wood grain on it. A lot of doors, like 3-panel doors and stuff, they're really forgiving. You can't see, you know, imperfections and stuff like that in somebody that sprays bad. This is gonna show, you know, everything. Your overlaps, if you're not overlapping enough, getting dry feathered edges, and you're not getting it gelled in enough, you're really gonna see it really bad. But, you know, you'll figure it out. And this is the easiest way to me to do it, the fastest way to do it, you know, versus stacking your doors. Super stackers, you'll put them on the ends of the doors. You'll spray the door flat, flip it over, spray the next door, and then you'll stack them. And you begin stacking them. And instead of having to take up all this room right here, they'll just stack in one place. So you can stack them out in the garage, or I can stack them over in the corner. One of the reasons I don't use super stackers or door deckers, this is actually, I think I might have said super stacker, but this is a door decker. There's another type of doors that stack. They're called super stackers, and I've used them both. I like them both. I like them both equally. This one's metal, super stackers are plastic. But one of the issues with them is the doors are stacked, you know, pretty close. Ventilation becomes a problem, and the doors take a long period of time because there's no ventilation in between the doors, and all the chemicals outgassing just keep the door dry for a significant period of time. And one time we were doing a lot of doors doing that. They sat in the garage. The next day they were still wet. That becomes a problem because you know, dust, debris can start landing, getting inside there, and you know, causing the doors to be rough. Now, when we do this method, we force dry them by having a box fan blowing through, and you get ventilation going through, but then you run the risk of contamination. In new construction, we use super stackers and door deckers a lot of times where we don't have all this open space to spray, like in a say a repaint. So this course is all about new construction. New construction, you typically have just unlimited space, and it's so nice. That's one of the benefits to it. So here's the doors stood up. The process we went through, kind of explained it a little bit. We got doors sitting over here. We sand them first with a Film Tech or Ecostorm. Typically, like I typically would use like a 320 or 220. These doors came out primed, you know, really bad primed. Whoever the door company is, they primed them. I gotta say, a terrible job. They were extremely eggshelly. That's all gonna show up in your finish. So I used a pretty aggressive abrasive, a 150, to sand them all and sand them flat. You know, and it's really important because they are flat. The majority of doors we deal with have a wood grain to them, and you wouldn't see that. But so we used the 150, sanding them flat. We had them stacked up, and we began shot vacuuming them. You got to get all that dust off, shot vac them, and then we wipe them down with a microfiber cloth. And then I sprayed on my first coat. So I sprayed on my first coat. Once the first coat is on, I used a Film Tech, a 1/2-inch foam abrasive to just lightly and quickly sand them. You don't want to, I'll take and just rub them down to feel. If there was anything missed in the initial sand, I'll rub them with my bare hand. And then after I rub them and I don't feel anything, you know, and they feel like glassy smooth, then I'll continue the sanding and then just wipe them down with a microfiber cloth. But in these contoured edges and stuff, you're gonna wanna touch that, wipe that, feel everything. But I use a 1/2-inch ultra fine open cell sponge, which is an EcoSilk sponge. Now, anywhere from fine, super fine, ultra fine. I really like an ultra fine, especially on these doors since the finish is really, really smooth. But you're just trying to knock down anything that might be a little bit rough on the door. So we just quickly hit them all, wipe them down once again with a microfiber cloth, right after we sand them. And then we shoot the second coat, and then they set for a day before we take them down and stack them out of the way. What you don't want to do is leave these here and do any type of spraying of your walls or your trim or anything where you could get overspray on them. If the garage is warm enough and it's warm enough outside, the temperature, you don't have a lot of fluctuations, you're not worried about, the doors warping anything, just stack them outside. If you're worried about warping them, we actually have right here in the kitchen, a wall right here where I know there's countertops, cabinets, everything's covered there. We can just begin stacking them right here on the wall. That's going to be out of the way. These ones, they could go up into a closet upstairs and out of the way because these are all the upstairs doors. Once I spray the closet, we can put it inside and then cover that up and they'll be protected inside. So there's the process, what it looks like. Make sure the edges of the doors, they're sanded. You want them smooth. When you're vacuuming, shop vacuuming, a lot of times there's a lot of dust and debris from where they cut this. So make sure you shop back around that because you'll get debris blowing through this hole and onto the other door. That's kind of something you'll run into that I just want to touch on there. But we're gonna run you through, give you a look at what this whole process looks like. Standing them up, this method right here, I've actually done this by myself. It looks like it's possibly a two-man job. A lot easier with two people, but these are hollow core doors, light doors. I'll grab two of them. I'll have a stool and I just open them up right here. I'll just hold them myself, climb up on the stool, screw them together. Once again, it is easier with two people, a lot easier, but I've done this method by myself. I've done the Foam Pro door method by myself. Super stackers, door deckers, that's a two-person thing because you have to have one person on one end, another person on the other end to flip them and rotate them. So if you're doing that method and spraying them down, then you'll have to have two people. So one of the, I'll just talk about maybe the drawbacks if you're not comfortable spraying up, runs, sags. If you're not comfortable doing that when you're spraying them down, you can absolutely load tons of paint on them instead of having to two-coat them. You really still should two-coat them, but you can load tons of paint. You're not going to get runs. Flip it over, load tons more paint, no runs. So you can be confident you're not going to get any runs. But once again, to me, it doesn't eliminate a step because I always two-coat them anyways. And if you're not confident spraying the doors with without getting runs on them, then I'm not sure how you're going to tackle and spray the door jambs, and the window sills and stuff like that if you're doing full wrap windows without getting runs either. And same goes the walls and stuff. So I just highly suggest learning, getting comfortable with standing up when you're doing new construction. All right, now we're going to start taking our doors down just like they go up. I'm just going to be unscrewing them. One person's going to be grabbing the one door, removing it, leaning up against the wall. Make sure who's ever handling the doors, that's taking them down, they should wash their hands before handling the doors. The last thing you want to do is get dirty handprints on the door. If the doors aren't 100% cure, it's very important that your fingers go into the door hole and other finger goes where the hinges are. Do not manhandle or grab the doors. So that one's ready to go. If you're using a long cure time paint, some paints take 30 days to cure. Say for instance, one of the common paints we use, Sherwin-Williams Emerald Urethane. It's a great product, but you could, if you're the same day, next day, you could easily, put a fingerprint on the door, and that could be really bad. So try to handle the doors as little as possible. Anything that can scratch the doors, keep them in your pockets. Watch the door that the handler has. Make sure you're unscrewing the one that he's got. You control the other door. He takes off with that door. It's good to have a drill that has a hook on it. Just like that. So we're gonna move all these doors out of the way, set up new doors. So I'm gonna find 2 holes, center them. I want my steel door hanger kind of coming off at like a 45-degree angle. This is a really critical step. When you screw these in, make sure they're in the center of the door and not coming off at an angle. The last thing you want to do is split it out the side of the door. Typically what I do is my first door, I put in 2 screws. I want to set my drill so it ratchets. I don't want it too tight, overly tight, but I want it tight enough. So 2 screws. I think I got 3 more downstairs doors that'll go right here in this place also. I've got the front door. So the front door doesn't match height-wise any other of the doors. The front door, I'm probably gonna shoot that laying down because you do one side is interior color, opposite side is exterior color. So I'll be doing that laying down. I'll bring my sawhorses in here. We'll show that in another video. Odd man out right here. This is 3, so we're hooking 3 together. And that's gonna be our final doors. And we're gonna inspect them and begin spraying our first coat. We've got everything vacuumed. We vacuumed really well all the way around. So I'm not gonna be kicking up, dust. I think there might be, some question, when you're spraying these doors, is the overspray gonna carry from, because I'll start here on this end, I'll start spraying, work my way down this way. Is the overspray gonna get on these doors over here and mess them up? It's not gonna mess them up because these things are gonna be, completely saturated with paint. Those are gonna be still wet when I'm spraying these down here. So it's not gonna be an issue. So ready to get going. Little tip, I always turn the heat up, crank the heat up, like everything to be warmed up, before I start spraying. I forgot to turn the heat up, when we left yesterday, so everything's a little bit cool. But you want to turn the heat off, once you start spraying because you don't want, the dust, carrying up into the return air and going into the filters in the furnace. So, stuff feels, a little bit cool, but, I typically like this stuff to be room temperature. It's kind of a little bit cool, but we'll see how the product hangs. Say if like some paints, trim paints are very fickle and like to be sprayed at higher temperatures. And so, I like to just get the heat cranked up to at least like 75 before I start spraying. Right now, the internal temperature in here feels, about 70. The product is a new product I've been using, Scuff Tough. I just started testing it out. It does hang pretty well in cooler temperatures. So, once again, if you do get a run, it's always sandable and fixable. So here we go, we're gonna start spraying. I kind of like hitting the edges first. I'll hit the edges first, then I'll come back and begin spraying my faces. So like I would spray, these edges, then I'd come back, start right here, spray these 2 faces, work my way around the other side and come around and get this face. Always a good idea to have, somebody managing hose. Now you can do it without, a hose manager. If the hose hits the door, then you got a touch up that you got to deal with. So you can just take and hit the edges and then continue or hit like this first edge and just do your edges as you go. I like to just hit my edges straight on all 4 of them and then begin going. Now tops and bottoms, interior doors, don't get weather, don't get moisture. There's no issue with warranties on an interior door, so we don't worry about painting the tops and bottoms of the interior door. Now, if you were on a, you had a second story and you're looking down on the top of a door, you might want to, paint the tops of the doors. If we were doing tops or bottoms, we would do them first, laying down. We would just roll them with a weenie roller, and then we would set them up to spray them after it dries. But this is what it looks like spraying. I'm gonna be spraying. You got to just choose a speed. You really have to just look at the paint going on and in it hitting and just gelling out and being nice and saturated. I overlap 50% as I go. If you go too fast, the paint's going to dry too fast. It's going to end up being textured, rough. If you're going too fast, not overlapping enough, it's going to be dry where your overlaps are and not heavy enough, and it's not going to gel out and have a nice smooth finish either. So you really have to actually just look and see what you're doing. You have to be really focused and pay attention, see the paint hitting the surface and see it like hitting and being wet enough. If it looks dry, then you need to slow down. If it looks like it's just way, way, way saturated, too wet, it might run, you just speed up. So this is how I spray a door. I'm using a Tritech Fine Finish 510 tip. I like a wider fan when we're doing multiple doors because you can spray them a lot faster. So here we go. So those doors are done. Now I'll give you another look without doing the edges first. I'm looking at it, inspecting it. They look pretty glassy. So here's another look. Another key when doing the doors is, I'm gonna go all the way down, all the way over to the top. If I don't go over the top, I'm gonna get a heavy spot where I, turn around, likely to get a run, all the way over the top. You can see if I just do my edges, turn it, this I can do the edges all at once. All right, so I got them all sprayed. One of the things, just cleared the dust out really fast, opened up the doors, opened up the windows. I turned on the forced air heating, so we'll just blow all the dust out of the room and let these things dry. It's just gonna take a couple minutes, and then I'm gonna close the doors because it actually is really cold outside, so I want it to warm up in here pretty fast. I'm just gonna inspect them, make sure they look really good and super saturated. See if I notice any dry spots on any of them. That's the first coat. After the first coat dries, a couple hours, we can sand them with an ultrafine 1/2-inch sponge and then do our second coat. They look pretty dang good. Kind of one of the key things is get the heat cranked up so it flash dries them in case you got it on, too heavy, to stop any type of runs. The doors being cool, if I turn the heat up, as soon as I'm done spraying, it'll help get them to skim over and start drying. And these are already starting to dry right there. It's starting to look pretty good.